Thank you very much, Mark, and it's a pleasure to be here. I thought the report, Judge Metcalf's report, is fabulous. I want to react to a couple of things we've just been discussing. To begin with, I guess I start from a different premise here, which is that, number one, we're dealing with a category of people who are, for the most part, entering the United States illegally under circumstances where there's no right to come here in the first place. It's a privilege to come here. And under circumstances where it has long been the law of the United States that ingress and egress at our borders, the control of who comes into and who leaves the United States, is a matter for the political branches, not a judicial matter. And that is the reason why immigration is a matter for the Department of Justice, not for the most part, for the United States courts. I think if the report shows anything, and it shows a lot of things, it's that the due process breakdown here is that the American people aren't getting due process. I don't come away from reading the report thinking that the aliens in the system are being failed in a major way. I think the American people are being failed in a major way. And the breakdown here is political accountability to the American people from the branches of government and the components of government that are responsible for enforcing the immigration laws. I don't think that at the discretion of the Attorney General means the Attorney General can do whatever he wants. Frankly, there's discretion at every part of any political or judicial system. In fact, no one has more discretion in how to handle cases than defense lawyers do. They have to make a decision, for example, about what facts to emphasize and what legal remedies or defenses to pursue. Discretion is just a fact of life in any system that you can't have a million antecedent rules in predicting every single possible thing that may ever come up. The other thing is, I agree that we should be encouraging people to follow the regulations, but how on earth do you encourage people to follow the regulations when their first two encounters with the regulations are entering the country illegally and then a court system that doesn't enforce the laws? If that's the introduction to American society that the alien gets when he comes here, I don't think any of us should be too surprised that there's a breakdown more pervasively in whether we follow regulations or not. To me, as a former prosecutor and someone who worked at the Justice Department for about 20 years at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, what really leaps out about this report is the, frankly, fraudulent statistical keeping and reporting that the Justice Department does, particularly with respect to notifying Congress of what's going on in its immigration system. Remember, the Justice Department is responsible for enforcing the laws against fraud, the laws against false statements to government agencies, the business disclosure regulations. The Justice Department, I can say this confidently as a prosecutor who worked on cases like this for a long time, the Justice Department would never in a million years tolerate the kind of pervasive dissimulation, lying, frankly, that goes on in the statistics that the Justice Department is itself putting out to report to Congress what's going on in the immigration system. The business of, just to take one example, which I think is the one that is the most stark from the report, to report what in the criminal justice system would be the equivalent of bail jumping by including the cases of everybody who doesn't get bail in the first place is frankly preposterous. I mean, there's no way that you can notify Congress of how effective our system of allowing people to be at liberty while their cases get processed, unless you explain to Congress that you're only including the people who get liberty in the first place. And by mixing these numbers of people who are allowed to be released with the people who are in custody and are frankly coerced into coming to court, there's no way that the American people can understand the gravity of the problem of actually releasing people in the first place. I think it's obvious that the Justice Department in enforcing fraud cases would never tolerate that kind of record keeping and statistical reporting by, for example, American businesses who have to make reports under, for example, the Securities and Exchange Commission's regulations. The big breakdown here, I know there's a proposal on the table for an Article 1 court. Just to sort of try to compare this to my own experience, in 2004, I began proposing a national security court for terrorism cases. And what I found in making the proposal was that there wasn't a great appetite on Capitol Hill to do the work, and it really is a lot of work involved in trying to get another court established. It may be a good thing, it may not be a good thing to do an Article 1 court. I'd want to hear a lot more about that. But I will say this, whether you have one or not, the breakdown here is in political accountability at the executive branch level, and that's mainly because of the failure of oversight at the congressional level. It's all well and good to say, and the report certainly makes this point, that the Justice Department component that is reporting to Congress is making oversight very difficult by the way that it supplies records. On the other hand, it's not like it's a big mystery to Congress that immigration is a mess in this country. And while it would certainly be more effective for oversight for the Justice Department to provide better information, the fact is Congress could already do a lot better job than it does in demanding answers to questions and conveying to the American people a better idea of what the state of our immigration enforcement is. The other thing, I think it's admirable because this report is apolitical, which is a good thing, not to try to read into why these numbers are so skewed. I think it's fair to say that what Judge Metcalf does in the report is simply lay out what is a dramatic problem and leave it to others to try to figure out why these numbers are being skewed in the way they're being skewed. I would offer, however, a theory, since I'm not bound by your report, and it's obvious that what the Justice Department is doing is trying to create an illusion of its own effectiveness in terms of how the immigration laws are enforced, and it's trying to create an illusion of judicial hostility to aliens that I think the report completely undermines. We have again and again had the problem of politicized justice, more from this Justice Department, this current administration's Justice Department, than past Justice Departments, but no Justice Department, no administration is completely immune from it, particularly with respect to immigration. And these illusions that the Justice Department has tried to create go back several administrations. This is not an Obama administration problem. We need to have the facts in order to make policy. The most disturbing part, I think, of this report is that it's very difficult to know what the facts are because the components of government that are repositories of the facts are not giving them to us straight. If the numbers were provided and the statistics were provided in a transparent way, we can then have the kind of robust argument that we ought to have about what our immigration policies ought to be. But we can't even begin to have a sensible discussion about that unless we know actually what the facts are. And I salute the work that Judge Metcalf has done here because unlike the arms of government that are responsible for this, he's at least putting out what the facts are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy.